Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor, and every once in a while, maybe every 6 months, even 8 months, I do a video, and while I'm doing it, I'm just literally giddy about doing it and putting it out there, and you need to listen to every single word that I breathe. Every single word. I don't care how long this video is, I want you to watch it to the end, okay? And then pass it along. And in this video, I'm not making any accusations against anybody. I'm just showing you some interesting things that I found, okay? But we're going to start here. The market's very boring right now. We're looking at coinpaprika.com, one of my sponsors, and there's not much going on except XDC is doing the best. We'll leave it at that. Then the official cool guy, and as interesting as I think this video will be, the official cool guy, why not have a cool guy in the video like that, you know? Official cool guy put this out from apparently Valhill Capital, which is Jimmy Valley, who's a very controversial figure. He's the guy that put out the 35,000, and then even he had the gall to mention $50,000 XRP. And I've never thought that he literally meant it or anything, but anyway, I don't even need to go off on that tangent. Lebanon to repeg its currency after 25 years. The second I saw this, and this is an FT article. Now we know the US dollar has been a joke for a long time, and a lot of these countries are sick and tired of the United States taking advantage of their status as the world reserve currency. The second I saw this, it reminded me of this video, which is worth you watching 1,000 times, but we're going to watch it for the second right now.
All these countries who've been bullied by the US dollar are looking for new partners, and they're looking for a new system. And part of that is looking for a new LBMA or a new gold exchange, because Putin and Xi and others are very much aware, like anyone who trades precious metals honestly knows, that the LBMA market and the COMEX and the OTC market and the forward contracts leverage is an artificial, legalized way of repressing the paper gold price. So it's not normalized pricing of gold. It's not a conspiracy theory. I even knew this before I became a gold bug or gold interested. When I was working in Wall Street, we all knew this. But in terms of the gold exchange and the LBMA, Putin, like many other things, has known that the West, he's been patiently with it. Modern monetary theory, the idea that you can solve a debt crisis with more debt and then pay for that with mouse click money, was once a fringe concept in the US or in the West. Now it is mainstream, and it's an absolute insult to the notion of money as a store of value. Now it's just a medium of exchange. Russia and the East are thinking, no, we like things like fertilizer, gold, and hay and hard assets. And they're saying we need to reprice and normalize the pricing of the LBMA market. It's one of the many sins of the West that they want to correct. Now, whether they succeed or not is another question. But it's no coincidence that the Moscow World Standard has popped up in addition to everything else as we de-dollarize, as the petrodollar gets diluted by other exchanges and other trades, that they'll do the same thing with the gold market because it is real, it is a monetary metal. And so the Russian finance minister is now proposing that these Eurasian banks start creating their own standard for gold, that these committees come together and they bring in, whether it's an aggregated or a monetary national unit, they're going to reprice physical gold more fairly. Because Putin knows, like everyone else knows, that the LBMA is an open joke. It's legalized use of leverage to artificially repress the gold price. So again, when you look at 8 LBMA banks effectively having thousands and thousands of levered contracts short, when most of the market is going long and the gold price is repressed, that's not fair gold pricing, regardless of whether you're a gold bull or not.
You know the drill, folks. That's why Glenn is one of my sponsors, and there are links in the top of the description of this video. You can click on that link and tell them DAI sent you. With that account, I'm able to buy gold, and I'm able to have that gold tied to my debit MasterCard so that I can literally spend grams of gold on meals if I need to. I also buy physical gold. Now, I want to show you this real quick, and then we're going to strap in for the bulk of this video.
Blow up the Nord Stream pipelines? Okay, we've entered a new phase, one in which the United States is directly at war with the largest nuclear power in the world. Doesn't mean it'll go nuclear immediately, but it does suggest there could be consequences. If we actually blew up the Nord Stream pipelines, why wouldn't Russia sever undersea internet cables? What would happen if they did that? What would happen if banks in London couldn't communicate with banks in New York? Just that one piece of it, leaving aside its potential effects on our power grid. But let's just say the banks couldn't communicate with each other for one day. What would the economic effect of that be? Oh, it would cascade downward into your house. We could have an actual collapse. We could wind up very quickly in third world conditions. Those are the stakes.
You know, this reminded me of a couple of things. One of them, it reminded me, I swear, I don't remember where it is, but I swear I remember something going around over the last year or two about how the XRP ledger could work even if the internet went down. Don't quote me. I swear I heard that. I swear it was a topic that came up at some point. And the second thing this reminded me of is when Chris Larson was on stage at Money 2020, and he said that he thinks that XRP would be good if we had a systemic crisis, or I can't remember his exact words, but, and then Brianna Madigan said the same similar thing, and that part of the video she was in was deleted. Okay, it's time for you to sit back, relax. I've got my afternoon coffee, and you should have yours too. Maybe we should both put some cinnamon in. If I can get my 10-year-old to go get me some cinnamon, I'll put it in here for this. But you should, because here we go. Now, I've learned from following John Deaton and talking to John Deaton at times, I've learned that John Deaton a lot of times will say things, and it's almost, I almost get this sixth sense that he's asking, without asking, if maybe we ought to go check into this. So the digital asset investor decided he'd go check into this a little bit today. I spent the last 3 hours checking into this. And it's fascinating what happens when you start going down certain roads. And that I'm going to show you where this road led me. So make sure your seatbelts are on. Here we go. First, John Deaton here. What he's retweeting. This is the guy. His name's James Taylor Copeland. He sued Ripple back on May 3rd of 2018. This is the tweet. And the plaintiff for him was Ryan Coffey. And again, I'm not accusing anybody of anything. I'm just telling you some factual things I found about these guys and about the law firm and previous law firm. Just watch. John says, I filed a suit on behalf of XRP holders as well. I have 74,000 in my class stating XRP is not a security. The majority of the first-time purchasers of XRP weren't even aware of the company Ripple. I'm curious as to how many XRP holders you have identified that agree with your claims. Why do I ask about this 4 years later? The guy bought 650, this is that Ryan Coffey guy, bought 650 XRP on January 5th, 2018 for $2.60 each, then sold 649.98 XRP less than 2 weeks later on January 18th, 2018 for $1.70 each for a loss of $585. Those are the facts. They claim he relied on Ripple and expected profits, so he sued. Okay? So on the surface, that's $585, really? That's kind of most people's initial thought. So I decided we'd go down the road. First, I want to remind you of two things, because I believe that the time period in which lawsuits drop matters. R3 sued Ripple on September 8th, 2017. Consensus announced the Brooklyn Project, and don't forget, the Brooklyn Project, because Charles Gasparino did the video in May 2018, where he said that both the SEC and the CFTC were working with Consensus Brooklyn Project, and he specifically mentioned Joseph Lubin and Andrew Keys. Andrew Keys, I believe, is the guy that Gasparino talked to. So the R3 lawsuit is dropped right here. I also want you to think back to the Gary Gensler, Tim Draper video, where Tim Draper says, you know, and I'm not accusing anybody of being a part of any conspiracy. I'm just telling you facts that I found and what was said in that video. He said that, you know how this goes. He can hear the bankers panicking, and what they do is the bankers they'll sue you, and then they'll get their government buddies after you. Well, we've been dealing with their government buddies since December of 2020. Here is R3 sues Ripple, September 2017. And then right here on May 3rd, 2018, Taylor Copeland Law Firm, this is from my timeline, they sued Ripple. Okay, Ryan Coffey sues Ripple. And it's right in the middle of all this going on. April 22, Gary Gensler puts an article in the New York Times and he says XRP and Ethereum are securities. April 23rd, SEC meets with consensus. Then May 3rd, the lawsuit drops. May 10th, Gasparino does that video I showed you, the Brooklyn Project, okay? 7 days later. June 5th, Robbins Arroyo, we won't even get into that one, but they sue Ripple. June 8th, SEC meets with consensus again. And then June 14th, Bill Hiddenman gives Ethereum the free pass, okay? It's important that you understand the context of all this. This is the guy that sued Ripple on Ryan Coffey's behalf, James Taylor Copeland. He went to Georgetown University Law School, which will matter at the end of this video. He has his own law firm now. He was at Mintz Levin. Before that, he was at Clifford Chance LLP. He was an intern, but he was at Georgetown University Law Center. He had a 3.5 GPA, and he was there from 2009 to 2012. He was also went to Walt Whitman High School, which is in Maryland. So he grew up in Maryland, D.C. area, okay? Now that's significant for me, not for any reason other than I'm 48, been around for a while, and to me it's significant that this guy is from that area. And for that reason, I focused on that area because I've always heard San Diego's a great place. I think Ray Fuentes from Link2 lives out there. He's told me it's a great place. I've always heard San Diego's great. So this all looks like a guy who comes out of law school. He has a great resume here. He works for a highbrow law firm in Clifford Chance. And then he goes to San Diego to get he probably wanted to escape to a nicer area than he grew up or something. And San Diego, I've always heard, is great. So he goes there, he works for this law firm, then he goes out on his own. But I zeroed in on this one because this one's in Washington, D.C. He was there for a while. It's a huge firm. And these are the type of firms that we've been talking about. Okay, that's my logic. So I started looking around for, even though on his resume it shows that he was there, that he was at that law firm. Let's see. Okay, he was a clerk there from 2011 to 2012, and then he transitioned to working there from 2012 to 2015. So I was just looking around for anything that puts him at that law firm. May 2014, right here, Clifford Chance. I just wanted to see if I could find any of the people that he worked with at the time. And there's his name right here. And then here's 5 people that he worked with. But he's out of the Washington, D.C. office is the way I understand this. I think that's Washington, D.C., 202. This guy, I looked at all these people one by one, but this guy's the one that caught my attention, Stephen Gaddy, because Stephen Gaddy is the guy that was working in the Fintech area. Okay, so he caught my attention. So I zeroed in on Stephen Gaddy to just get an idea of this guy. Here's the Fintech team there, Stephen Gaddy. And again, I'm not accusing any of these people of anything. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with these people or this law firm. I'm just showing you some of the factual things I found. So there's Stephen Gaddy right there, and this is they have a whole fintech practice. Well, then I got to this. Just started looking around for Stephen Gaddy. Well, he wrote this at the Harvard Law School Forum on Corporate Governance, Tokens and Extraterritorial Reach of the U.S. Securities Laws. Here's his name right here. He's one of the guys, editor's note. These guys are partners. Jesse Overall, don't forget that name, is an associate at Clifford Chance. So he now, in this, which is from October 2018, he now is doing things with Jesse Overall at his same firm. They're both there at Clifford Chance, okay? They're covering this topic, and then it gets down to this part. Regarding Tezos Securities litigation, a class action lawsuit brought by investors alleging the tokens sold in Tezos' initial coin offering were, in fact, securities. Federal court recently asked and answered the question, where does an unregistered security transaction purchased on the internet and recorded on blockchain actually take place? Well, here's what's interesting about that. You know what's interesting about that, folks? What's interesting about that is who filed that Tezos lawsuit that they're referencing. Taylor Copeland Law Firm. Here's the Ripple lawsuit. Tezos. Okay? Tezos Securities Litigation. Tezos ICO. We filed the first case alleging that the sale of pre-functional tokens through an ICO violated U.S. securities laws and obtained a $25 million settlement on behalf of investors in the ICO. So here is two guys, Stephen Gaddy and Jesse Overall from Clifford Chance, which is his former law firm in D.C., and they're writing about the lawsuit that he's now filed. Now that's purely a coincidence, right? Okay, so let's keep going. So then I was looking around for some more. I wanted to see what else Stephen Gaddy knew about fintech and different things. This is Clifford Chance. Virtual currencies with real implications. FinCEN's first enforcement action against a foreign located money services business. And as we go down, we keep going down, and I'll show you his name right here. Stephen Gaddy right here. He's doing this. Look right here. By 2015, FinCEN assessed a civil money penalty in the amount of $700,000 against Ripple Labs Inc. and online. So my point is that they're fully aware of Ripple and everything involved. They even have a footnote here that, which I think I don't remember for sure, but I think, don't quote me, XRP2 LLC, Ripple Labs Inc.'s wholly owned subsidiary, was also implicated. I think that this was mentioned in the Ryan Coffey lawsuit. Again, pure coincidence, as is this. The Accord, I started typing in Clifford Chance, just wanted to see what popped up. Accord Legal Group adds Clifford Chance Perkins Coie. So this is some legal group. The Accord project is a blockchain consortium that targets smart legal contracts. Okay? And here they're affiliated with Perkins Coie. Who's Perkins Coie? That's Lowell Ness's firm. Lowell Ness is the attorney from Andreessen Horowitz who wrote the safe harbor memo that became the Ethereum free pass. And I'm not saying that Clifford Chance in any way had anything to do with that, but I am saying Perkins Coie did, because Lowell Ness said so, and he said he represented Andreessen Horowitz. Well, I was looking around because I wanted to find out more about this Accord legal group. R3 partners with the legal industry Accord project. So they're in it too. Remember when blockchain startup, remember at my timeline at the beginning of this video, blockchain startup R3 sues competitor Ripple. Again, I'm just showing you factual things that I found, okay? R3 sues competitor Ripple. Well, who's the Accord project? It's called the Accord, what do they call it? The Accord project, right? The Accord project, here's the law firm, their law firm supporters. Again, these are all coincidences, folks. Clifford Chance is one of their law firm supporters. Cooley, who is a member of the venture capital working group who worked on the safe harbor with Perkins Coie. Who else do we have here? We'll find somebody, don't worry. McDermott, Will, and Emery was one of the three law firms that was there. Perkins Coie was one of the three law firms that there. And what do we have? Sullivan Cromwell, which is Jay Clayton's law firm, is also a supporter of the Accord project. Then there was this article, R3 creates legal center of excellence for blockchain. The 10 firms joining the initiative are this Clifford Chance is on that list with Perkins Coie too. Those are coincidences too. Then we get to this. Now I want to remind you, let's go back before we cover this, because this is where it gets kind of interesting. Right here, remember when these two guys from Clifford Chance, Stephen Gaddy, who worked with what's his face? James, well, let's pull his name back up. I can mess up the name. James Taylor Copeland, all right? And he worked with Stephen Gaddy, and now Stephen Gaddy works with Jesse Overall, okay? So now I'm going to show you this. All eyes on Ripple as it faces lawsuit. Is XRP a security? This is an article about the Ryan Coffey lawsuit. Ryan Coffey lost $551. Sues Ripple for not being correctly registered. Now, you know when people write articles, and they write articles about things like lawsuits or any topic, a lot of times they'll go out and they'll find a couple of people to get quotes from that might have some knowledge of these type of articles, whether it's a legal article or otherwise. So I was cruising through this article and I got down to this part. It says lost $551. And this part right down here jumps out at me. Having said that, at the time, Ripple attracted criticism for the move. Jesse Overall, an attorney at Clifford Chance, told Bloomberg listing on an exchange is the integral part of the process of facilitating an unregistered, unlawful, illegal securities issuance to people who are not allowed to buy. Now, from what I could tell in this article, they quoted two people outside of Ripple and outside of the Ryan Coffey side of the lawsuit. One is Oliver Bussmann, Switzerland's Crypto Valley Association, and one, just by pure coincidence, happens to be an attorney who works at the same law firm that the guy that filed the Ryan Coffey lawsuit worked for when he was in Washington, D.C. And the same guy happens to work with a guy that he worked with while he was at that law firm in Washington, D.C. But we're not finished yet, folks. Because here's Jesse Overall right here. Jesse Overall says that his practice focuses on Fintech and complex financial transactions, okay? Right here, he says he participates in the Lawyers Committee of the Chamber of Digital Commerce. This is the Lawyers Committee of the Chamber of Digital Commerce. And remember, that's the same Chamber of Digital Commerce that we had to kick, scream, cry, whine, and complain for over a year about when they were going to file the brief. And they finally filed the brief when the case is almost over. Look who's in the Lawyers Committee with him. Cooley, who was in the Venture Capital Working Group that worked on the Safe Harbor. Who else is in it? McDermott, Will, and Emery, who was in the Venture Capital Working Group who worked on the Safe Harbor that became the Ethereum Free Pass. Perkins Coie, who was in the freaking Venture Capital Working Group thing where the Free Pass came from, folks. And Clifford Chance is right here. These are all just factual things, folks. And here's Jesse Overall. Look, he's into Fintech, Web3, and crypto. Okay? And as we go down, what do we find out? The first thing that captures your eye is this right here. Don't we remember somebody else that went to Georgetown University Law Center from this video? Because remember, he now works with Stephen Gaddy. And so did James Taylor Copeland, who also went to Georgetown University Law Center. Let's remember when he went there. I think he went there 2009 to 2012. Let's see when Jesse Overall was there. He was there from 2012 to 2000. He also had a 3.5 GPA. Let's look at what else Jesse Overall does. As we go down the page here, Clifford Chance, he was at the What? He was at the CFTC too? That's not all, folks. He was also at the Securities and Exchange Commission. And I didn't even go back any further than that. Let's go now. Let's see if there's anything else. I don't see anything else, but those are pretty interesting. Now, let's finish this thing up. Let me introduce you to Stephen Gaddy. Here he is. Listen to him right here. He's so knowledgeable about things.
He thankfully is sensitive to it, and they're accepting of the concept of an evolving instrument. And they've talked about it in the context of Ether on the Ethereum blockchain, and how it may have been a security when offered, but now functions as a decentralized unit of value for a unit of exchange. And many of these cases, even the recent cases, the AirFox and the Paragon, I think the founders, the issuers of those tokens, viewed what they were issuing ultimately to be something to be used within that ecosystem in order to receive goods or services through that ecosystem.
Okay, now, this is the end right here, folks, but there's one final thing I want to show you is who he did the interview with. This, I would like to introduce you.
So, Jesse, how do you see the security token changing the real estate space?
We think that security tokens
You're listening to
have
Jesse
the
Overall,
potential
folks.
to be very transformative.
The same guy who just happened, of all the people they could have pulled to do this interview on the lawsuit that had just been dropped on Ripple, just happens to be the guy who the attorney who comments by pure coincidence. And now here he is with Stephen Gotti, or Gaddy, whatever. Anyway, just some interesting factual things that I just happened to bump into that are all publicly available. I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe, hit the like button, and tell your friends and family to pass the video around. This is interesting stuff. Sure, there's nothing to it. Just